Jews don't eat filet mignon, they don't eat sirloin because that's the back portion of the animal. So like when we say something is kosher, it usually refers to the method of it being killed, but sometimes it just refers to the cut of meat. It kind of depends on the person that's talking or what it is they mean. But like, you know, I mean, I grew up in a Jewish house, but we ate pork. We just didn't let our neighbors know we were doing it. We also had a Christmas tree, and we called it a Hanukkah bush. And we called Santa Claus Hanukkah Harry. We were modern Jews, you know, we were the kind of Larry David Seinfeld kind of Jew, you know, not the real kind. Yes, you can have one of those in a minute. We're not having that right now. Not right now. Okay, so this is roasted lamb shoulder, and I know some people think they don't like lamb because, you know, they think it's going to kind of taste funky, but lamb really has kind of a beefy flavor. So it's not really a funky, goaty taste. Sometimes people will ask me about John the Baptist because it says he ate locusts. You know, so like they'll ask if are bugs okay, but really what they're talking about is a kind of a bean. A locust in that day was a kind of a locust bean, so it wasn't really a bug. But Jews actually can eat certain kind of a bug. I really don't know what the rules are because I don't know anybody who eats bugs.
Why are Daniel and his friends more healthier than the Babylonians?
I'm sorry?
You know that Daniel ate the Jewish food?
Yes.
Compared to the Babylonians?
Right.
Why were they healthier?
See, because Jewish wine is not the same as other people's wine. Like people will often ask questions about wine. Did Jesus drink wine? Well, yes, he did. But the wine of the Jews was distinctly different from the process that wine that like the Egyptians had. Jews did drink wine, but Jewish wine has a tendency to be a little more sweet and lends more to a grape juice kind of an effect. But it's not grape juice, it is alcoholic. So it is actually wine, but it's different. So because they didn't want to take the chance of drinking what they refer to as strong drink, they only drank water. And because they didn't want to take the chance of eating food that was killed improperly, they didn't want to eat the meat. So that's why Daniel and his friends only ate vegetables, because there's no way that could be kosher. And they didn't have to concern themselves with it being killed improperly or drinking wine that was too strong for them.
Why were they healthier?
Why were they healthier than everybody else? Because the word kosher also means clean. And so because they didn't have refrigeration in those days, a lot of people got sick not realizing it because of what they were eating. Because blood wasn't taken out of food properly. You see in the Bible repeated again and again, don't eat an animal that's boiled in its mother's milk. And the reason being, that's why Jews don't mix dairy and meat. You can't have a beef and cheese sandwich. You can't mix meat and cheese. Because it was improper cleaning in those days. You know, they didn't clean with soap. They used sand to clean with and, you know, different methods. And they had wooden bowls and utensils. So if you would have mixed the blood or the bacteria of meat with the bacteria of cheese in the same bowl, you would have a certain curdling effect that could make you sick. So a lot of the rules that God gave people were for the clean reasons, so that they stayed alive, more than it being an insult to his name that they eat something strangled. It was for the purpose of them being clean, and the other surrounding nations didn't observe those rules. Are we out of forks, Michael?
Yeah.
Do we have one in the back? Go dig around. We should have plastic ones somewhere. Aha, you might have to eat with your hands. These are little baby eggplants, and you find these a lot in desert countries. I'm not really sure why, because I believe eggplants are actually from Africa. But they have a nice little bitter taste, and they really pair up well with lamb. I've got the all famous Bible Tabasco here. If anyone needs a shot of a little bit of spice, we can pass that back to you as well. Now come on, you know it's interesting that someone's given you food. Michael, did you find some? We should have the sporks in that little red basket back there.
Oh, yeah, investigate.
Yes. Okay, we can do that. If you have a spoon that you're not using, that you were handed, if you could pass that off to the next guy hungrily looking at you. Now, if I'm giving some of you more than others, that's because I like some of you more. It's not true, I'm going to get more.
Why is an eggplant called an eggplant?
Originally because they were white and they looked like little eggs on a tray. But the Italian versions, the ones that are more purple, were the ones that grew a little bit better, so they were used in different regions, and that's different hybrids that come from the purple ones. So these are the purple kind, but originally it was a little white, eggy-looking thing. You know, originally tomatoes and chilies come from Mexico, and chocolate as well comes from Mexico. Mexico has a very rich culinary history, and chili wouldn't be anywhere in the world if it weren't for Mexico. People will often say, well, what did people do for spice? And the spiciest thing anybody had before chilies was black pepper. So before the conquistadors brought chili back to Europe, that was the spiciest thing that anybody else had, was just using black pepper. Interesting. Who's still? All done? Everyone? Yeah. The last point I wanted to mention concerning the Passover was that, you know, there's a lot of different Christian traditions concerning the Lord's Supper and how we do communion. And the manner that communion is done all over the world is just tradition of man. It's not something that's set up in the Bible that we do word for word. Everybody does it by their own interpretation. But during the custom of the Jewish Passover, there was, the portion in it where the bread is broken. It's part of the tradition. The leader or the head of the table would be the one to do that. And so when Jesus took that piece of bread and he broke it and he said, "This is my body," he was trying to make a point to them and explain something to them. He wasn't saying you need to get little wafer crackers and have, now if that's your tradition, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not specifically biblical that we partake of the communion by eating the little wafer and drinking the little cup. When Jesus broke that bread, he was trying to make a point to them so that they can understand. This is my body and it's being broken for you, so that they would understand the sacrifice he was about to endure and what it meant. And then when he took the cup, excuse the crudeness of this, there's a certain amount of wine that's consumed, and this would have been during the time of the meal where it was the third cup, which is considered the cup of redemption. So he took the cup of redemption. They had their third glass of wine. And he said, this is my blood poured out for you, because it was the cup of redemption. It wasn't the wine itself that he was saying, do this in remembrance of me. He was reminding them that the redemption is done. Do this in remembrance of me. So the tradition that we honor of the cup and the bread is not necessarily the exact way we need to do it. There's nothing wrong with doing that in that way. But there's also nothing wrong with this being the communion, with us sitting together in a simple setting, sharing something to eat, and remembering what the sacrifice of Jesus really meant, what it means to us, what it means to the world around us, and how we can share that with people, what gifts and what talents we have in our lives that we can use so that we can share that more clearly. And that's really all that he was trying to teach during that. And his disciples would have understood that, as they were all Jews, and they would have understood the traditions surrounding it. But if you weren't raised in that fashion, that would seem strange that he would say, this is my blood. You know, I mean, he was trying, the redemption it was the point that he was trying to make.